Hello and welcome to episode 164 of the Mouses Makes Knitting Podcast. My name is Mandy, sometimes known as Mouse, and I have some things to show you today. Not as much as I'd hoped because I've had some problems with my wrist. My tendinitis has flared up again. I think the catalyst is knitting socks because of the way I hold the needles. When I learnt to knit, I was taught by my grandmother and I was taught English parlour style. So in my right hand I hold the needle like this, and in my left hand I hold the needle like this, almost at a right angle. This wrist is fine. This wrist I get terrible tendinitis, tenosynovitis I think it is. It's not just my thumb, it's all my fingers, all the way up my arm to my elbow. In order to combat that, I started knitting like this, with both hands above the needle. And I could do that quite well, but not with socks. With socks, I automatically revert to this. And I've knit a lot of socks in the last couple of weeks and set it off. So that slowed me down a little bit. So I haven't got all those socks finished that I told you I was going to. I'll show you what I have got finished in a bit, but first of all, an admin-y thing, because I've already had a tangent and it's been less than 2 minutes. Do not forget to enter any whips that you're finishing up from last year or previously into the topping out mal. I'm sorry, Denise, it is topping out. I don't think I've said it this year. The thing that I mustn't say. I think I've only said it correctly, but I do have to check. It runs until the 1st of January till the 31st of March. Belinda from Belinda's Baubles and I are jointly running it this year. You can enter in both threads on the chatter and the finished object thread on the Mouses Makes Ravelry page, or on the Belinda's Baubles Ravelry page. And you can enter into both. We're calling it Double Trouble this year. You can also email us your entries at, my email address is mousesmakes, don't forget the S in the middle, mousesmakes at gmail.com, and Belinda is Belinda's Baubles at gmail.com, and then we will enter them into the thread for you. You can also do that if Ravelry won't allow you to put your photograph in both mine and Belinda's. Apparently some people have had trouble with that. We will be drawing at the end of the month for a pattern prize, and then at the end of the mal there will be some grand prizes. Dave is making a prize for you all, and I'm also going to offer a yarn prize, but you'll have to watch Belinda to see what she's coming up with. Okay. Also last week, quickly before I forget, I asked you if you would be kind enough to go and subscribe to a lady called Chris, whose podcast is called Loopy Loop UK. On her bucket list was to reach 1,000 subscribers. I know a couple of other podcasters also asked their subscribers. We share some. And you have managed to get her to not only 1,000 subscribers, but when I checked last, she's 3/4 of the way to 2,000 subscribers. So very well done, and thank you from all of us. Okay. Shall I talk about knitting now? I have finished, here's the cough, I have finished all my Advent socks. They're on a selection of blockers. I'm staying still for a second in the hope that that might end up being my thumbnail. Okay, pair number 1. On some not terribly well-fitting blockers, but for display purposes. The advent itself was from Spin and Blether, and it was the Fleece Navidad, and I just knit 2 long sock tubes. I used 2.5mm needles and 64 stitches, and just knit 2 2 long tubes, one with each 50g skein, and then divided them into socks. So this is probably the length that I would have made them had I just knit them separately. So the main skein, obviously, Fleece Navidad, and the toe, heel and cuff on these is West Yorkshire Spinners. West Yorkshire West Yorkshire Spinners signature sock in Juniper. So these have the same heel, toe and cuff. Then this pair, which was out of the middle of my tube, has different heel, toe and cuff. And these are all Drops Fable. There's this one for the heel, which is 109. Then 104 for the toes, that's burgundy. And then this one has completely lost its label. It's pink. It's not that yellowy pink it's coming up on the screen, or on my screen anyway. It's quite a blue pink. So that was the middle pair. They have a slightly shorter leg because I knit those from the leftovers. I'll explain in a minute. Then the final pair is a little pair of shorties, and these were from the beginning of the tube. So when I cast on, I automatically started doing rib because I was making socks. So I just started ribbing. So rather than rip it out, I just used that for the rib for this pair. And these have got heel and toe in the Drops Fable, which has fallen on the floor. I'll rescue it. This one, the 109 again. Yes. It suddenly got very, very dark. I might have to put the light on. So the way I divided the skein was I took this pair from the end. When I finished my tube, I put a toe on the end, and then I measured. I know that I need 14.5 centimetres for my foot if I'm going to put an afterthought heel on. So I measured the 14.5 centimetres for the foot, added on 10 centimetres for the leg. So I just measured down 24.5 centimetres and divided the tube there. Put on the cuff, then measured 10 centimetres down, double checked I'd got 14.5 for the foot, because that's the important bit, and popped in my heel. Then I went to the other end of the tube, to the beginning, and I measured down 14.5 centimetres from the rib and split the tube there and put in another toe. Then I put in my heel. So I measured 14.5 up, gave myself a bit of leeway so that I had a whole stripe at this end, which meant I could split this stripe to put the heel in into that stripe, because I just like the way that looks. So then with what was left in the middle, I had this, obviously. So I put a toe onto this end, measured down 14.5 centimetres and put markers in for my heel. Then at the other end, I put in a rib and then just popped in the afterthought heel making sure I had 14.5 centimetres for my foot, because that's the only measurement that really matters. And then the leg is whatever was left over. So that worked really well, and I will definitely do that again next year if I'm lucky enough to manage to get a spin and leather advent skein again, which I intend to do. And it's also made me think that when I'm knitting socks with leftovers, for example, the socks I made day for Christmas, shh, Ty's telling me off. Oh no, he might be barking at a crow. I think there's a crow on the roof. Ty's next door's dog. He's a giant mastiff and the sweetest dog you have ever met. Okay, tangent. Dave's Christmas socks. I knit out of West Yorkshire Spinner's Robin, and there was enough left, I think, to make me a pair of socks. I really like the yarn. So I think what I'm going to do is just knit a sock tube again. Rather than weigh it out and everything, I'm just going to stick it on some needles. It can be my handbag knitting, and I'll just knit a tube and then divide it up slightly differently to the way I've done that one, obviously, because it will just be one pair of socks. But that's a plan. And I might do that with other leftovers that I think I can get a pair out of. As long as I've got enough to make at least a shorty sock, it's going to work, isn't it? Okay, so that was my finished object, and I am counting it as just one because it was one advent skein. Oh, I better talk about what I'm wearing. This, I showed you this finished last week. This is my summer sorbet tee by Leanne Knits, and I haven't really left myself much space to stand up and show you. It's knitted in my own yarn from 2023. It was the July colourway, and this batch came out wrongly, and I can show you how wrongly, because I have on matching socks. Hang on a minute. So can you see that stripe there? I'm so sorry. That stripe there is how the yarn was supposed to look. So you can see how much heavier this was. So I kept it to make myself a tee. I'll put it back on. And I finished it last week. It took me from September 2023 to last week, because I got bored. Once I'd finished the yoke, I got bored. I'm trying to wiggle my chair back to make enough room to stand up so that you can see. Right. Hang on, I'm going to move you as well. Is that better? Sort of. Okay, I'm going to go on my tippy toes. No, this could be a disaster. My balance is not great. So, it's a good length. I've got it on over a dress today. But I could wear it over jeans. Oh, now you're too far away. Hang on. I could wear it over jeans because it is long enough. So, oh, I'm sorry. I hope I haven't made you all feel poorly. I'm quite pleased with it. That's a lie. I'm very pleased with it. I wish I'd finished it sooner. So, the only other thing that I've been knitting, oh, I'm not going to be able to show you this either properly, is my advent blanket with the Mousewitch Yarn's Colour Play Advent also from 2023. And I have finished, I'll be a bit careful how I pick this up, I have finished the knitting. So, this is the top. I lean right back, oh, you can sort of see. Now Dave is ringing me because once again I forgot to tell him I was recording. There's the middle. No, I've gone the wrong way. That's the top again. This is the middle. I'll show you it properly next week when it's properly finished, because I started last night going round it, just putting this crocheted border. I just felt it was a bit unfinished, and I'd been going to put an I-cord border on, and I started doing it and I didn't like how it looked. It was too heavy. The blanket's very drapey. It's also much bigger than I thought it was going to be. And so I just switched to just crocheting a single row of trebles or doubles if you're in the US, just to neaten up the edge really. So that should be finished later today, and then I will show it to you properly next week. I haven't touched the socks that I'm making for the 2 Knitalongs, for the Soxy and You Know It, or the Sox-a-Long. Haven't touched either of those. I used all my sock knitting time getting that advent finished, and then my wrist was just so cross with me I didn't dare touch the others. So I've had a couple of days where I haven't done any knitting. I think you're wonky now that I've fiddled with you. Hang on. It's better. Because there's been other stuff going on, medical appointments and things, but also because I was just trying to rest my wrist. So I spent some time having a look at what I was going to do with my mystery skeins from this year. So I've got the monthly blankets, no, the monthly skeins that I know which blanket I'm going to make with. And there's 3 of those a month. So I'm going to have quite a large blanket, but tiny tangent. I want to try next year, rather than use a duvet, I want to try using wool blankets, because then I can layer them to make them warmer or less warm. I want to see if that helps with the night sweats and the hot flushes. I am now post-menopause, but my disturbed sleep is all down to the hot flushes. So I'm wondering whether the theory that my wool socks keep my feet at an even temperature will work if I use a wool blanket on the bed, which is why I'm making a lot of wool blankets. Because I've got that one planned, and in this piece of paper I've got another 2 planned. And I know someone will say, I don't know why you make so many blankets, because they've said so in the past, and that's why. So the mystery skeins this year, there's a full skein every month, and there's a set of 5 mini skeins every month. So I've had a look and I've come up with the idea for 2 blankets, using the yarn double in one but not in the other. So the blanket that I've just finished, which was a mitered square blanket, I want to do that again using my mini skeins double, so it will, the squares will be the same as in the blanket that I'm just finishing, but there'll be more of them, so the blanket itself will be larger. So I'm thinking I'm going to do it with a pale grey contrast for the in-between squares, just for a bit of a difference, and just so that it's a neutral that will go with everything. And then I thought, for the full skeins, I'm going to do kind of a jelly roll blanket. The jelly roll is by Kay Jones of the Bakery Bears, and it's essentially strips. In the original blanket there's strips of different colours, but I'm going to do the whole strip in one mystery skein, but I'm going to hold it together with this. This is 100% acrylic, and I've got a bag of 10 100-gram balls that my friend Denise gave me. But it doesn't say what the meterage is on the ball, so I wound off a gram, weighed it to make sure I'd got a gram, and then measured it, and it's 5 meters to a gram. So each ball is 500 meters. So even though I've only got 10 of these, but I will have 12 of the mystery skeins, I should have enough. If I haven't, I'm just going to leave December off. So that's that sorted. So I've got a plan for my 3 blankets with my own yarn for this year. I've currently got on my list of blankets, this is a lot of talking. There'll be some more knitting in a minute, I promise. Where are the blankets? There they are. I've currently got 11 blankets underway. I'm just about to finish one. I'm going to frog another one. I'm going to frog my C2C blanket for a couple of reasons. It's been on the needle, well, it's been on the hook, I should say, since, well, for 2 years, 29th of January 23. And I stopped working on it because I wasn't really enjoying it. It looks great. The pattern itself looks great, but I don't like the way I've put the colours together, and I'm not enjoying the process of making it. So there's no point. It's just going to sit in a box and hang around for another couple of years. So that's going. That will free me up 2 spaces. I have picked, because I've nearly finished this, and that will leave me with just 2 pairs of socks to knit. And as I said earlier, I can't really be just knitting the socks. I've picked my next projects. So these really should be for February, but I can start them when I finish this blanket. And what I picked was, I'll show you the blanket first because we're talking about blankets. I actually picked the C2C, sorry. That was a bit that the connection was in my brain, but I forgot to tell it to you. I picked the C2C and I thought, no, I'm going to frog it. So what I am going to do is these 2 blankets. And I'm going to do them both because that will then free up 3 slots, 4 slots on my list, which means I can cast on 3 and I'll still be 1 less than I started. Did you follow that? This is one of my blankets from last year's yarns. Last year it was the birthstone collection, and so they are the birthstones for each month. So you've got amethyst, garnet, peridot, opal, ruby, and these ones were the tonals that I'm making just a large mitered square throw out of. And I've got 3, 6, 7, 7.5 months into this one. So there's a fair bit to do still on that, but I am holding the yarn double. So, and then the other one, because I was doing a variegated and a tonal. I lie, that must be the variegated because this is the tonal. This is another blanket by K.F. Jones of the Bakery Bears, and it's called My Favourite Blanket. So this starts in the corner, and where are we? Okay, so it's this wide. Kind kind of single bed sized by the time it's finished. Not quite long enough, but and I am just into July on this one, so there's still quite a lot of work to do on this one. So I'm going to get those two finished next, and then when I've done that, I can cast on my new blankets, which, depending when I get them cast on, I may or may not be able to show you because of the way things are going into the shop this year. I've made it awfully complicated for myself. So let's start with January. January's Mystery Mini and Mystery Full Skein will come out of the shop on the 27th. But I still can't show you them because you can order the winter set, which includes the January Mystery Mini or the Mystery Full Skein, until the second week in February. So I can't really show you January's until probably the beginning of March to make sure everybody's had their January skeins. I've made it so complicated for myself. I've always done this. I remember I had a school report when I was only like, I don't know, 8 or 9 years old. And my favourite teacher, Mrs. Lord, her name was, had said, she was the maths teacher, really. And she said, Mandy will always find the hardest way to solve a problem rather than the most obvious. And I persist. 50 odd years later, I'm exactly the same. So that was the blanket that I pulled. I should probably also explain that I'm each month pulling a blanket project and a whip wall of shame, shelf of shame project to work on to get finished. Certainly during our Knitalong. And the one I picked out is this one, which is the Salt Marsh Cove Tea. I didn't tell you who the Summer Sorbet was by. That's by Leanne Burnitz. Is this one Fogbound Knits? It's not in there. I've got a feeling it's Fogbound Knits. If it's not, I'll put it on the screen, but I think it's Fogbound Knits. And again, this fell foul of the boredom factor. I'm that far down the body and was just fed up with going round and round. So this has a bit more interest to it because every other row you purl across this garter panel on either side. So there's a bit more interest to this one. But really, I just need to do the same again. I've finished Star Trek, so I can't have a Star Trek marathon unless I pick a different season to watch. And can I just say, while we're on the subject of Star Trek, it was ruined, absolutely ruined, by having a musical episode. Why? Why did they do that? It was bad enough when they did it in Buffy, but Star Trek, no, that's a step too far. Too far. Anyway, I shall endeavour to get this finished. I have got till the end of February, but I'm hoping to get it done before then because I would like to wear it. I'm a little bit worried. As I hold it up to myself, feels a little bit itchy and scratchy on my neck. But I'll probably end up wearing it over a dress or a long sleeve tee, so that'd be okay. The yarn is James C. Brett. It's the Shh in SH01. Which brings me on to something else I'm going to frog. When I got this out and I looked at it, I'm knitting something else in the same make of yarn, but not the same colour. I'm knitting the Traveller Shell by Andrea Mowry in just the pale grey, and I'm going to frog it. I think I've done about that much, and I have no desire to knit any more on it. And I think I wanted it as like a little cover up, and I've seen a pattern I prefer, and I'm trying to remember who I saw it on. It might have been Ruth from Ruth Loves to Knit. It might not have been. Anyway, it's by Isabel Kramer, and it's kind of, or was it Leslie? I don't think it was Leslie, because I can see the colour it was knit in, and it looks like one of Ruth's colours. Or it could have been Yana. Let's just say I don't remember who I saw it on, but it's like a cross between a shawl and a shrug. And I thought, for the purpose that I want, which is basically to throw on over a summer dress when it cools down in the evenings, that's probably more practical because it won't be as itchy. And I might actually enjoy knitting it because of the way it's constructed. So yeah, that's something else that's going to be frogged. So yes, I think, is that everything? I think that is everything. I'm going to go away now. I expect you're all relieved. I get to the end and I think, oh, I've covered a lot. And I look at the time and I've covered a lot in 30 minutes. I've done it again, haven't I? So I'm going to go. I'm just calm. Do you know that lady from Expression Fibre Arts? I can't think of her name. But she speaks so slowly. And she calls everyone beautiful soul. And it's all very calm and zen. And like you're at some retreat doing a yoga class. I wish I could be a bit more like that. But I'm a little bit hyper sometimes. So, unfortunately, you tend to get the hyper me. Right, I'm going to go because I need to get to Zoom and I need coffee. I know I don't really need coffee, but it is decaf. So it will, at least it won't make things worse. I'm going to go. I'm going to go and I will see you next week with definitely a finished blanket, maybe at least one pair of finished socks, and some progress on other things, she says with her fingers firmly crossed. So see you next week, guys. Bye.